Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Mediocre Alaskan podcast here with Brad Brooks, the founder of Argali Outdoors. Thanks for taking some time out of your morning to meet with me, man.
Yeah, you bet, man.
Because it is morning, what's kind of your morning routine?
Oh man, it varies a little bit. So I have two kids, two little girls. So, and I'm also a morning person. So my most productive time is in the morning. So I try to get up around 5 or so every morning, and I either work out or do work until get the kids ready for school, which is weird these days in a COVID world. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it, man. Coffee. I'm a coffee snob, so make my own, roast my beans, French press, and then try and crank out some work or get a workout in before the day starts.
Yeah. You said you're a morning person. Did you make yourself a morning person, or have you always been a morning person?
No, born that way for sure. Born that way, yeah. Love the morning, always have. Yeah, I mean, I could still remember as a young kid, my dad is really into waterfowl hunting. I think a lot of young kids don't like getting up at 3 in the morning, but I loved it. Always did, still do. Never have an issue getting up early, especially when it comes to going hunting. But even when I'm not hunting, I love getting up early and just cranking through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, my brain it's just, how like when you're most productive, like I can, if I have like a creative task to do, whether that's like trying to solve a product problem or I need to get something written out that requires like brain power, I can do it so much faster in the morning. And I'm also just my brain is just like operating at a much better pace in the morning. I also know that, like, so that same task, if I wait until the afternoon, and I'm not really disciplined about my schedule and my time, my head I feel like it will be going a million different directions. Mm-hmm. And I have a really hard time just like focusing and concentrating on complex tasks. So it's just a lot easier to do in the morning. So as a result, I just know that if I have something complex or creative I need to do, I really try and crank it out in the morning before I get distracted with whatever comes at me that day.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I used to wake up. I teach high school English, so I'd wake up fairly early, but now I've found that even an extra hour. So I wake up at 5. That way there's no rushing. My day is not just a whole bunch of stress, and I don't show up to school at the last second. It's a lot easier for me because I live alone. But it's just so much different, and I feel that I'm a much better teacher because my brain isn't rushed. It's clear. We're ready to go. But then by the afternoon, brain's just kind of mush. It takes a lot of energy, and so trying to get some writing done or things like that after school, it's much more difficult. But in the morning, you got to take advantage of those hours.
Yeah, I will say the other thing. So when have you read the book Why We Sleep?
No.
Okay. Really good book. One of the best books I've ever read, and I mean that seriously. It was really like I've always been a burn the candle at both ends type of person, so like just haven't really prioritized sleep in my life. And after I read that book, I really tried, even though I'm a morning person, I tried to get to bed early because I know that getting enough sleep is really, really important, just health wise. In the long run. So if you haven't checked that book out, Jeff, you should definitely read it. It was a life-changing book for me in terms of just realizing how important getting sleep is to your lifespan, essentially.
Yeah. What how many hours of sleep do you typically get now?
I try to get it so at least 7, ideally 8, but I would say I average 7, but I strive for 8.
Yeah. I know in college and shortly thereafter, it was, everybody's talking about, I only got 3 hours or 4 hours, or I'm good. Like, well, you might not
Yeah.
actually be good. You might think that you're good, but you haven't really tried the other way. Same thing with procrastination. Kids like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm good at procrastinating. No, you've never done anything else. And so you don't know how much better you could be if you
Yeah.
start off early.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, people are really poor judges of, and I think of how much sleep deprivation affects them. I've even noticed it. So I got in a habit for hunting, even for some archery hunts, where especially mule deer, where I would get up, like I would literally leave my house at midnight and drive for 3 hours and then start hiking. So I would hike for maybe 2-3 hours in the dark, going on nothing, no sleep or like 2 hours of sleep. And I don't know what it is. I feel like I used to be able to do that. And now the last like 2 years, I'd say I've done that a couple times and I am just a wreck. Physically, my body doesn't want to work. I can't, like, I'm not like, I don't know. It's just like, it doesn't work very well for me anymore. Which is interesting because I feel like I used to be able to do that. It's a really bad idea physiologically to do that, but it was practical. I could, put the kids to bed and hang out with them, and then I could go hunting instead of like sleeping in and getting an actual night's rest. I really try not to do that anymore. In fact, I just did it a few weeks ago, or a week ago, and I just felt like it crushed me. And I was just an absolute wreck the entire day, and wasn't very much fun. So sleep is really important.
Yeah, I listened to Jay Ferruggia podcast, and Joe Rogan talks about that a lot. I got some friends in the fitness industry too, and they all talk about sleep. And then at some point, you lose your like that elasticity, not only of like your body itself, but just of the body's capabilities to do what it used to do. And so you get away with it for a while. Do you use any supplements?
No, I don't. No, I don't. No, I was a college soccer player, and then I actually raced mountain bikes professionally. And when I was racing bikes, I used a handful of things for like hydration and endurance activities, but I don't. No, I'm fairly anti-supplement. I think there are advantages to using some supplements in some situations, but I'm not a regular user. But I am very health conscious about what we eat. So I don't have any, and I do get like regular blood work done. So I don't have any like nutrient deficiencies that would really, for me personally, that I would really benefit a whole lot from a supplement from. That said, there are times where if I'm doing some sort of endurance activity or workout where I will use some sort of electrolyte supplement, or I have these like sodium potassium pills that I use, but they're all being used sort of in the field or when I'm doing an activity. I don't have like a regular supplement that I take.
Yeah, I do a morning supplement. It's called Athletic Greens, just to make sure, because being at school, especially now,
That sounds good. That sounds like something I would like.
Yeah, it's good quality nutrients. You get a lot of people who take that really trashy like fish oil or something like that in the morning, and it can't even be absorbed by the body, can't even be used. So yeah, Athletic Greens is really good, and making sure that it helps with the immune system. Vitamin D, that can be something that we get up here in Alaska. You can get pretty deficient of if you don't watch it because you don't have the sun in the winter. So I like that because teacher, especially now with the kids and sickness, just can't be getting it. So
yeah, no, actually that makes sense. I when you said supplements, I thought you meant something like a creatine.
Oh no.
That's what I was. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there should be a differentiation between like a workout supplement versus like a vitamin or a nutrient supplement.
Yeah. No, but we eat pretty healthy around here too. So Yeah, I think it, it could change too, man. Maybe over time, like I'll find that there's a need for me to do something, or I benefit from something, but yeah, not yet anyway.
Did you always eat real well?
Yeah, well, no, let me take that back. My dad's from the Midwest, so Wisconsin. So our diet when he was feeding us was your typical Midwestern fare. I wouldn't call it bad. It's just very stereotypical Midwestern. So it's like brats, a lot of sausage, that kind of thing. We didn't eat, like, I wouldn't say it was like unhealthy, but it wasn't like we were going to be, uh, people would look at us and be like, oh man, those guys eat real healthy.
Yeah.
I would say as I, after I got out of college, I was pretty conscious about my diet because it affected my performance, and like mountain bike racing. And so, so I was pretty conscious of it then. And then when I met my wife, she is really conscious of like what she eats. And so at some point our diet just became meat and vegetables, and that's pretty much all we eat anymore. That plus peanut butter. I eat lots of peanut butter. So
The performance thing is so huge. In the last couple of years, I've really thought so much more about that. Not just like what you put in your body for its physical performance, but also like your brain. Like what are you listening to? What podcast? What are you reading? All that stuff. And that's that kind of all encompassing wellness and being prepared. You don't have to be an athlete to just want to feel good. And if you want to be able to hike a mountain, and be able to do what you want to do, because you're not 22 anymore, where it's just all kind of open-ended. You got to have those habits. A buddy of mine likes to say that he's training for 60, just so when he's 60, he's able to be, still do the things he wants to do and still be really viable, rather than just a slow decline. And you see some people who the whole year they're planning for their big hunt, and there's no training for it. They're not mentally very sharp. They're buying new camo, but physically it's still going to be driving around in the four-wheeler or just trying to hammer out what could end up being a dangerous hunt because they haven't put themselves and prepared for it physically, and I guess emotionally kind of comes with that too.
So that's something that's interesting to hear you say that. So I'm 37, and one thing I've noticed is, I was just telling my wife this the other day, I feel like I have to work a hell of a lot harder to stay in the kind of shape that I was in, in my early 20s. It is 100% true, and it's a lifestyle thing, right? So you really can't just, I don't know, if it's like you want to go on a mountain hunt, you can't just like 2 months before be like, well, I guess it's time to get in shape. And when if I get a question about like, what do you do to stay in shape? It's like, I don't do anything to like get in shape. It's just my lifestyle. So it's a year-round thing. And I try and maintain some level of like physical and mental health all the time. So there's no difference I might do a little bit different like exercise routine as I get closer to hunting season, but it's not like I'm starting and ending some sort of like training regimen around the hunting season. And I've seen friends of mine who weren't as disciplined about that, and it's really limited their ability to go to places like that we used to go when we were younger. Mm-hmm. So it absolutely is a thing. Seen it happen. Yeah.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plans shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
I think feeling good is such an important thing.
Yeah. And you feel good too.
If for no other reason, I just like feeling good. So getting to the point where, you eliminate a lot of that extra sugar and nonsense. And I'm not a health nut. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm just ordinary guy who likes to hunt. So, but it's for everybody. And even now, especially with people with predisposed or conditions, or it puts them more likely to be affected worse by COVID. You would think that a lot more people would be looking at what they're eating and being healthy. So if another nasty bug comes around, they're less susceptible to it. But, it just feels better to you eat salad, or you get used to like the natural sweetness of fruit being sweet enough for you. You don't need half a bag of Skittles to get your sugar fix. You can enjoy dehydrated mangoes and be like, man, that's sweet. That's good. Yep.
Absolutely, man.
So off the health stuff a little bit, but you just got back from Alaska not too long ago. How was that?
Oh, it was amazing. I'm so jealous of all y'all that live up in Alaska, because you guys just have like this abundance of wildlife that's just not, and you can't find it anywhere else. And and on the one hand, so we were just in Kodiak, when I see the salmon running into the streams, it's like here in Idaho, we have salmon and steelhead. We used to have some of the biggest runs in the lower 48, and now it's just a pittance of what it used to be. So I get this nostalgia for what it must have been like 60, even 70 years ago here, and it kind of bums me out to know that I'm like, oh, this is what it was like. But anyways, we were in Kodiak fishing and hunting blacktail, and it was really fun. I was a little concerned about the winter kill in Kodiak. There was a lot of chatter about the deer population taking a nosedive, and it was pretty spotty, but we ended up getting into them, and I was able to, we were able to get some really nice bucks as well.
Nice. I've never been to Kodiak. I've been to the interior a couple times, but that was just for when I was coaching high school basketball, and then to visit some family in Wasilla. So I've never been up there to hunt, and it's so hard as an Alaskan in Southeast. There's so much to do down here, and it's pretty expensive to fly up. So it's almost like going to another state. Like you're still in state, so the tags are free, but it's not really convenient to move around. So I feel bad. I really want to get up there, and I got some buddies in Fairbanks to do some caribou hunts and whatnot. But man, there's a lot of Alaska that a lot of people have experienced, and I haven't yet, and I feel kind of bad about that.
Yeah, man, it's kind of one of those things where there are so down in the lower 48, there's a lot of places. I've hunted a lot of states, but I haven't hunted every state. And part of the challenge I have too is that when it's elk hunting season, we have great elk hunting here in Idaho. So it's hard for me to leave to not hunt Idaho to go hunt another state when I know we have really good elk hunting here.
Yeah.
Same thing probably for you guys, or for you, where it's like you have probably really good blacktail hunting at your back door. So I totally get it. The island was amazing. The people were amazing. I just can't say enough good things about it, man. I'm a big fan of Kodiak after having gone there, and I enjoyed the fishing just as much as the hunting. But just really interesting topography and vegetation. Yeah, and luckily we didn't see any. Somehow we didn't see any brown bears or in the field. Somehow we skirted around those things. I'm not really sure how, because they were definitely all around us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun.
You get the impression from rumors and stories that they're everywhere. And when I was hiking in the Wind River Range in Wyoming this summer, thinking same thing. Well, the proliferation of the bears, and we got to look out. I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. But what are some things that you keep in mind when you're going to a different place and you're kind of a guest in that area? Because a lot of locals don't like the arrogance, the sort of, I'm up here to pay my money to just take the resource. Is there any approach that you take to being a guest in a new area?
Oh man, that's such a great question, Jeff. Nobody's ever asked me anything like that before. Yeah, there are. In fact, I felt that more acutely last year when I was hunting caribou. Particular when we flew out of Kotzebue last year, and there was I wasn't upset about it at all. I completely understood it, but I think there was absolutely an attitude towards people coming in from out of the area and taking killing caribou that I think some of the locals 100% felt like was their caribou herd that they had a connection to, and here we are, some coming in just like flying in, shooting an animal and like flying out. So I try. Okay, it's like I'll try and answer that question as best I can, and I'll do it even from when I'm thinking about Kodiak is I always try and be respectful and understanding to everybody's opinion. So and not try and deminimize or brush off people that might feel that way. I totally understand it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I totally understand it, where they're coming from. So yeah, number one is like be respectful. Number two is try and adapt to whatever the local cultural customs are as best you can, whatever those may be. And then take all the meat, of course, right? So like I don't leave a scrap of meat anyways, but I think the most disrespectful thing you can do is leave any meat in the field. Alaska you guys have really strict salvage requirements, which I think are great.
Mm-hmm.
There are the salvage requirements in the states in the lower 48 really vary, and it's a bummer. You can leave like all the neck meat on an elk, and two years ago, I found a dead elk carcass that had the entire neck meat just left on it, and I was going to use an expletive right there. I couldn't believe it. It was the most, this is my home state. I happen to know people that shot that were not from Idaho. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I was pissed. I was like, how dare you come into my state, shoot an elk here, and then don't have the courtesy or the integrity to take all the meat. Like, what are you here for? Just to, shoot an elk, cut the antlers off, and go tell war stories to your buddies. It made me sort of just question, I was making a lot of judgments and assumptions about this guy. There's a chance he didn't, maybe he didn't know that was the right thing to do. Maybe he was taught that way. I don't know. Yeah. But it pissed me off. So I always, make sure that you're taking every last morsel of meat, because that's like showing the animals respect. The other thing is I really try hard not to blow up a spot. So like we flew with Willie Fulton, who is an absolute Kodiak character and an awesome pilot. And Willie is your typical bush pilot and just like anybody else, like where he's taking us is, those are his, like, kind of, that's what he makes his money off of. So he doesn't like other people knowing anything about where he's taking us. And we were filming and as well. And so, part of that is, since we've been back, a lot of people have asked us, well, what part of the island were you on? And I've told everybody, like, listen, it's just not for me to share kind of information. Like, that's, I told Willie, I told our pilot that we weren't going to talk about it, and I'm not going to talk about it. That's showing respect to, his business. He would probably never know if I told the entire world where we were at exactly. But to me, that's just, it's being respectful of the fact that, like, that's how he makes his living, and we're going to respect and honor that, even though it doesn't cost me anything if I were to tell people where we were at. So anyways, and then the other thing too, man, is just kind of like blend in. Like, don't try and stand out like a sore thumb. Don't be arrogant. If you're walking around talking to people, be nice, like super basic stuff.
Yeah.
I've traveled around the world enough, and I used to live in Central America, and I could pick out the stereotypical, like, rude tourist from a mile away, and it leaves an impression with people. So I always try and remember that you're kind of an ambassador whenever you're traveling around, and just, think of yourself as, everything you do has a consequence, and you're leaving an impression with somebody. So if somebody's never met somebody from Idaho, and they know I'm from Idaho, and I meet them, and I leave a bad taste in their mouth because I'm a jerk. Whether you like it or not, they're going to have an opinion about people from Idaho.
Yeah.
If that's their one interaction with somebody from that state.
Yeah. Growing up in Southeast Alaska, my buddies and I would ride our bikes to the river, and there would always be, a couple people that we'd encounter who were, dressed like Cabela's models from wherever. And there were some who would, because we were kids, like, fish close to us and, like, cross our lines. We're just like, what are you doing, guy? And there were a couple other people who would just kind of own it. Like, I'm not from here. And I kind of appreciated the fact that they weren't trying to be local. Just be who you are. Like, you don't be the obnoxious tourist, but just say, I'm not from around here. So don't try to be the local. Just, hey, man. And finding out more about the area too was always kind of cool. If you can't go to an area, so when I go down to Wyoming, or I go to wherever, like, knowing a little bit about the town and just kind of asking, getting kind of a vibe, and because that person that's, like, cutting your fish, that kid could have been on the state championship basketball team, or this person wants to go to college, and you think it's just a small little town somewhere, but they're real people. They're not just people that are there to serve you. So growing up in Alaska has kind of helped me understand and try to be a good, like you said, ambassador when I go to different areas.
Humility is really important. That's a good point.
What about
man? Just like common courtesy stuff. Like, the fishing thing is interesting because, like, we definitely had, when we were fishing on the surf, we had people come up and just, like, saddle up right next to us. And where I come from, you don't just walk up next to somebody and start fishing. Like, that's like, you can get in a fist fight over that kind of behavior. And so, like, I never do that because I know better. Some people don't know better. We had a guy, I hate to stereotype New York people, but, like, a dude from New York did that, and I don't think he knew any better. And so, like, I just told him, I was like, hey, what do you say that, like, we coordinate our casts because you just snagged my line? And he was like, oh, that's a good idea. I'm like, yeah, anyways.
So what are some universal, like, hunting principles that you have? I've only hunted for about 6 years now. And this last year I went to Wyoming to hunt antelope. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I had no idea what I was doing because the terrain was so different. It was so unbelievably flat. And Kodiak's different than Southeast because you got, little bit more exposed, whereas Southeast rainforest and forest,
Mhm.
it's thickly, densely vegetated. But Wyoming was just unbelievably flat. I'm like, how do I get anywhere close to these antelopes? So you eventually find out that there is some texture and using the texture and things like that. But what are some universal principles of hunting that you've found out that work kind of anywhere?
Oh man, that's a tough question. Um, Universal hunting principles. Like in terms of like, are you thinking like things that work for hunting animals no matter where you're at?
Yeah, I think like keeping in mind. So even though if I'm overwhelmed again, I drew a mule deer tag for Wyoming. We put up some game cams. We've seen the area, did the Onyx scouting stuff. So I'm excited when I go down there.
Yeah.
But because it's going to be so different, and after months of hunting blacktail, I'm going to have to remember. Okay, it's still just about wind and about thermals and about things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
some of those basic type things that you can recall in your brain and think, okay, I am somewhat prepared. This isn't my home turf, but just keep these basic principles in mind. I can have some more confidence.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. So I don't change my hunting tactics. I use the same tactics no matter what species I'm hunting. So whether that's, there's still hunting, spot and stock style hunting, ambush hunting, like I use all of those I use all of them for every species I hunt, no matter where I hunt. The specifics of which technique I'll use depends on the animal and the circumstances, topography, time of year, whether the animal's rutting or not rutting. So one thing I'd say is like if you learn those different styles of hunting, you can hunt anything, knowing those different techniques. So I'll give you a couple of specific examples. So during early season for in the lower 48, so like mule deer with a bow. For me, you can hunt those things. You can ambush hunt deer. You can try and figure out where a mule deer is going and cut them off. My favorite way to do it is to bed an animal and then put a stalk on it. That works really well in the early season for mule deer. It does not work very well during the rut for mule deer. So in November when I hunt mule deer, it is, those bucks are up on their feet damn near all day wandering. And so if I see a buck, I'm going to get over that thing as fast as I can because he's likely not going to be in that same spot. Whereas early season, I'm going to be a lot more patient.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the technique kind of just depends on the situation. But if you really effectively know like how to use those different styles of hunting, you can apply them based on your experience and knowledge with any species. So 2 other examples. So last year I'd never hunted caribou before. Caribou, I would describe them as a fairly gregarious animal, not easily spooked like mule deer. I'd actually say the same thing about the blacktails I was hunting. They're a lot less spooky than my experience with like whitetails and mule deer down the lower 48. Mm-hmm. But when I was hunting caribou, it was clear that they were on the move most of the time. And when they were on the move in the tundra, I was not going to be able to cut them off because I couldn't physically go as fast as they could across the tundra. So it was almost entirely a find them, see what direction they're moving, and try and cut them off if I could. But if I couldn't, if I saw them moving in a certain direction and I'm like, I can't physically get there, I wouldn't make a run at them. I would just be patient and see if they turned a different direction, or maybe they bed down for an hour and I would have a chance to go after them. So I just kind of like used what I knew based on like the terrain, my observations about that animal, which in the first couple hours I was there, and it worked out pretty well. With blacktails, man, I hunted those things just like I hunt mule deer. They were early season, they're a crepuscular animal, just like all big game species, active, early and late. So it was get to a high point, glass, find an animal I wanted to shoot, and I would either say, like, figure out, like, yes, I can make a move on them to get closer while they were up on their feet, or I needed to wait until they bedded down and then I was going to make a move. And that's all I did to hunt the blacktails, was like spot them and then figure out how to get in on them, which is exactly how I hunt mule deer in the lower 48 and elk sometimes, especially in like the mid season. So anyways, it's kind of a long-winded answer, man, but if you know kind of the different, I'd say like the 4 main techniques of styles of hunting, you can really apply that to any animal. And then really, if you spend some time observing that species, even if you're not familiar with how they act, you can learn pretty quickly by just being observant if you see them. So like if you're hunting pronghorn, Jeff, the thing about pronghorn is, I don't know when you were hunting them, but before the rut, they wander a lot. And even in a desert environment, there's a lot of topography to work with. A couple other just like random thoughts that I'm thinking about, man, is like, wind never changes. If an animal smells you, like, they're going to be gone. So that doesn't change anywhere you're at. You can get away with a lot more than you think with animals' eyes. So even with pronghorn have an incredible vision, and they will see you from a long ways away. But you have to be, you can be patient with pronghorn with your movement and wait for them to move to a place where you can actually then make a move on them, where you have like a little undulation of the ground or some other topographic feature to hunt with. So I don't know, man. It's one of those things where I feel like there's some like experience and skill that you just learn from hunting in a lot of different places for a lot of different animals that gives you a sense of I don't know if it's like confidence or arrogance, you can call it what you want, but I feel like it doesn't, to me, I don't feel like I can't hunt any animal in any terrain. It's like, okay, even when it's a new species or new place, it's like, it's all kind of the same in some way. New vegetation, new animal, slightly different behavior, but in the end, you're trying to get close to them using, trying to fool their senses and using topography and vegetation to get within either bow range or gun range.
Yeah. It was a hunter management area pretty close to Laramie. And so it was just chaotic because, you're on someone else's land. So there's houses, barns in the background. There's cows. So there are a couple times where, and there's nothing behind, it's just straight shot. And so there were a couple times where I thought I might have a shot, but I'm like, I can't because there's a house back there, or I don't know what's back there. And like it was a doe tag. I'm like, well, that's a nice doe, but it's moving with cows. And what if it goes, there are cows right behind it. And so it was just, I was almost panicked the first couple of days because it was just so different. But then it got down to, and I ended up not filling the tag, but making stock and going around and being okay with, all right, this is going to take a long time to get down this small little bit of texture, and then I'm going to come up over here. But then it became kind of fun because it became, more of a learn and a hunting and a stalk. And then that really helped me out. Actually, blacktail hunting up here was just okay, you figure this is the good spot, but let's figure all these other things out and let's take the time to do the right thing and make the right move.
Yeah, I think so. So wherever I go to, man, one last thing is like, I will always be a student of hunting. So I don't ever assume that I know everything either. So when I go to hunt for like in a new place, even if it's a new place in my home state, or if I'm going to if I'm going to Wyoming to hunt elk in a new area, the animals, even if I've hunted elk 1,000 times, which I haven't, but if you've hunted elk like a bunch though, in a new area, those animals might behave in a unique way in that particular place based on the food and the water or whatever. Be a student. No matter where I go, I really try and observe and pay attention and learn. And, on the first day, you might not know a whole lot. You might be overwhelmed. But by the third or fourth day, if you're paying attention you'll learn things, you'll learn patterns, maybe where they like to be, where they don't like to be, when they're more active or whatever. But just like paying attention and approaching that hunt with a sense of humility and trying to learn is also a really valuable thing. And not assuming it's like, well, elk always do this, or deer always do that, or pronghorn always do this, and I know it because I've hunted them before. That's a really that's been valuable to me. Assuming you don't know anything and approaching every hunt as a student is it's just a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm. So when you go hunting, you turn your hunting into content. I do in the written form as write columns, but I've adopted more of the Patrick McManus and Bill Heavey sort of kind of bumbling out in the woods type persona, which is a lot of fun and easy because I don't have to. There's the expectations are a little bit lower. Obviously, I feel like I'm competent, but I don't. It's the expectation is a little bit different. So, how do you ensure that you are putting out quality content rather than just stuff? There's a huge difference between what you can find in YouTube and what you can find or consider a film.
Yeah. So we put out films, but this last year we also put out like a season of content as well. So I'd say the biggest difference with our content is we have a purpose and a message, and everything flows from that. And we really strive to make something that is authentic and has a story to it. And it's not just a kill shot montage. There is a huge market for the kill shot montage. That's not what I'm interested in doing. So it's specific to what we want to show. And I'd say more than anything, I like to make sure. So I have a business partner, Jason, and he's the magician, our editing magician, and does most of our filming. I do a lot of self-filming, but he does all of our editing. And there's two things. One is that our business was founded on the idea of sharing the value of wild places to hunting. So a lot of our content is specific to that theme, where we try and showcase the value of adventure to hunting and why that matters to hunting, and really give people a sense of that, like, you can do this too. There's a lot more than just the 2 minutes where it's an intense moment where you're actually like killing the animal. There's a whole hell of a lot that every hunter knows leads up to that, and a whole hell of a lot after that. And I don't want our content to be dependent upon getting a kill shot, or people only watching because that's what they want to see. We try and have a message and a theme that is well beyond that. The other thing is I like to make our content relatable and make people feel like they're with us. So, or that they can relate to the stories. So, if anybody watches our season 1 of content, we had a series called The Brooks Brothers, which is about me and my 2 brothers. And that content piece is about personal relationships between my brothers and I, which is relatable whether you care about the hunting or not. There's a personal component there. So we're very intentional, I would say, in our content about how we tell stories and what the story is about. There's nothing that we do that's accidental. So we don't just go out into the field with a camera and say, oh, well, just like see what happens. Everything we do is we try and tell a story, and that means before we even go out into the field, I will have an idea of what I want to capture beforehand, knowing that during the hunt it's completely unpredictable what kind of visual element you're going to capture, but knowing that the audio element is something that we're being intentional about before we ever go in the field, so it's not just a haphazard content style.
Mm-hmm. That one of going into the Frank Church Wilderness, man, that was a sweet one. That made me definitely want to be there with you.
Yeah, that's been our most popular film we've done. Yeah, and that was the first video we did in our Last Wild Places series, and that whole series was predicated on telling the story of in the lower 48 of, the last like truly wild places that we have. And it was unique in that the story, there's a hunt story there, but anybody who's watched that knows that film is about the story of the Frank Church and what led to the protection of that place, and why that place, 40 years later, is still important to hunting. And were it not for like the vision and the conservation efforts of a handful of people, we wouldn't have it the way it is today. So yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad that one landed with you. I think most people, they come for the adventure, and we hope they stay for the conservation story.
Yeah. I was in Idaho last summer. We did some hiking near Stanley, which
oh yeah, mm-hmm.
Sawtooths there, which is pretty sweet. And then we were on we fished the Salmon River, and then we got to the one spot that, the beautiful river, definitely capable of holding salmon. And there was a little plaque thing that had talked about the last sockeye salmon that were up there. And you're just thinking, oh my gosh, it's crazy that I'm in Idaho and fish make it this far. I knew intellectually that happened, but then to see, and it just made me sad because, again, it's the last remnants, and things have been ruined so much by so many different states and people, and over so much time that, it is, it was pretty sad. And growing up on an island, your rivers are so much smaller. You're talking about, my favorite river growing up was about 3 miles long. And so to have this river that is this far inland was pretty sweet to see. Just beautiful. Idaho was pretty awesome. So it was kind of cool to see.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. The Salmon River, you're in the Salmon River headwaters. It's like almost 1,000 river miles that we used to get massive amounts of sockeye, king salmon, chinook that were come up there to spawn. And now, you get like 5 sockeye. Sometimes you get like 200. I mean, it depends on the year, but the species is basically on the brink of extinction down here, in a place where not very long ago we used to have what you guys have in Alaska. There's stories about people being able to walk on the backs of salmon across the creeks and rivers in the Sawtooth Valley, and they're just not there anymore. And the only reason there are any fish is because they're propped up by a hatchery system, which is, frankly, completely unsustainable in terms of a fishery resource. So yeah, it's a sad story in some ways, but there's still some hope. I mean, I'll be honest, the biggest impediment to fish recovery down in our state is the dams on the Columbia River system. Like, no question about it in my mind. And there is some talk of trying to figure out, a longer term sustainable solution to getting, fish back into that river system. But yeah, it's hard to think about the long term. Like, what are my girls going to see? Like, I've been fortunate. Like, I have caught a number of salmon and been able to keep them in Idaho. Are they going to talk about salmon in a way that it's like, oh yeah, my dad caught salmon, I've never seen one in Idaho? Like, is that going to be their story, or is their story going to be one of like the salmon recovery? Like, it was, my dad only caught one salmon every other year or something, was always allowed to keep. But now, you can keep like 3 a day, I don't know what their story is going to be. I think it's open to, it's up to us to kind of figure that out, what that looks like. But it's going to go one way or the other. It's not going to stay in the same state it's in right now.
Yeah.
But we have lots of rivers, and it's great habitat for salmon. And I'm optimistic that there will be more of them.
So you're creating content. Hopefully the idea is to grow. So how do you keep yourself from being like a hunting personality? That's an indicator of success, but at the same time, at some point, some people kind of become something else and lose that, hunting my buddy, just dude personality. So how do you stay Brad Brooks and not become a personality?
Man, I hope nobody ever describes me as a personality. That's like, if anybody ever does, I think I'm gonna quit, go back to being a recluse. Man, I started our company, Argali, because it was fun and I wanted to do it, and it's 100% on my terms. And if it ever, what I always say is, if I ever wake up one day and I don't like doing it, I will quit. I'm not afraid to quit. I'm not afraid to walk away. And, and I mean it when I say it, right? So far, I still like doing it. And there's a lot of stories I want to tell that I haven't told yet. The other thing too is just like, I don't know, like just, I haven't changed who I am, and I never will. I'm not trying to do something for anybody else. I think it's, being uncompromising about who you are and what you're doing. And I'm not trying to make anybody happy. I'm not doing this to please the companies we work with or anybody out there. I'm doing it because I want to do it, and it's on my terms. And I think the minute you start trying to, you get into the game of like, I need to kill a big buck to impress people, or I need to do X to like grow my audience. That's when you start. That's the downhill slide, man. Mm-hmm. Keep it real, keep it authentic, and let your ego go, and just be okay with being a normal person. There are a lot of animals that I've killed that are not on the internet, that are not on social media, because I'm going to be honest with Jeff. Like, I don't care if people think of me as somebody who kills big animals. There are some places where I've gone where I've killed some really big animals that you'll never see on the internet, because I just don't care enough to be known as, I don't care what people think about me personally. And if their opinion of like us as a content creation company is based on how big the antlers are that we harvest, like, that's not what I'm in this game for. Most people are. And to me, it's a really dangerous place to be when your company or your content is tied to that antler measuring contest. So I don't know, man, just keep it real. I do what I want. I create the content I want. I have 100% autonomy over what I do, and that'll never change. If that ever changes and I feel like somebody owns me and is directing what I do, I'm out. I'll quit.
Yeah, and that's not guys like Randy Newberg. They're awesome. I love that guy. Great. So, I mean, he is like a personality, and he has personality, but that's not to begrudge anybody who has been very successful in the industry. But it is kind of a tricky thing you have to promote, and the best way to promote, it's free. Like social media is a free way so for any sort of entrepreneur, business, writer, to get viewers, to get clicks, you have to have some sort of online presence, and it is tricky. Like, to look like a legit outdoor writer, legitimacy comes with, variety of animals and large animals. But that's not what I want to be known for, and that's not what I write. It's funny that some people think that I'm a like, oh, Lund's a good deer hunter. I'm like, do you read anything I write? Like, not at all. But so how do you gauge that, and how do you decide that? You kind of answered that, but
I think it comes from, like, you got to think about why you're doing it. Now, I don't disparage anybody for anything that they do. Like, my choices are my own, and everybody else's choices are their own. I think it comes back to like authenticity and humility. And there's plenty of people, friends of mine, who are full-time either YouTubers or social media people, who are very authentic and real, and they've maintained that. And I don't think it's impossible to do. I just think you got to be, just keep it real, man. Don't, that's the easiest way to do it. And Randy is a real dude. The folks at Media, they're real, authentic people as well. The funny thing is, man, so here's something interesting. Most of the people I know that are in the content space that are friends of mine, they're all introverts. They're not extroverts. So yeah, and I can name off a number of them. And I feel like there's something about I would include myself in that bucket, is like, there's something about that personality type in the content space that keeps your ego in check. It's just like thinking about being conscious of why you're doing something and just being intentional about it, I think helps keep you centered. Yeah, and I think people can tell, if you're just sharing who you are and what you're interested in and what makes you happy. And that's what I like about Instagram. That's what I don't like about Facebook. That's, because you're sharing things that are just part of your life and that you want to share. And that's interesting. That's what I enjoy seeing on other people's social channels is, people that are real and authentic and genuinely sharing things they're interested in. They're not trying to emulate somebody else or something else that they think people want to see. They're just being themselves. And you can tell right away when people are just being who they are, or if they're trying to emulate some other person or some other brand of content that they think will get them some sort of some popularity or followers.
Yeah, that introvert thing makes sense. I think if you're a showy type person, then you're going to come off as showy and probably illegitimate online. It's all about production, right? And then you're not going to have that honesty. And so if it almost makes you uncomfortable to post something, that kind of shows that, all right, you're a lot more real. It's not a production.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
You got an hour of your time. So you got some closing thoughts, and make sure you tell people where they can find you and all that.
Oh yeah, you can find us on the Instagrams at Argali Official, and or on our website at argalioutdoors.com, or YouTube. Just search for Argali. I can't remember what our actual YouTube handle is. I think it's Argali Official as well. I don't have any thoughts other than I appreciate you having me on. Anybody, I will say, like, because we do get hit up by people that are trying to create like a YouTube, film stuff. And the thing I'd say to anybody who wants to film, try it out. It's a skill and a practice, and just be who you are more than anything. And just be cognizant of telling a complete story with your content from beginning to end. And the kill shot isn't as important as you might think it is.
Cool. Well, thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. Good stuff.
Yeah, good chat with you, Jeff.
Take care, man.
See ya.